Today we're going to be talking about fighting in StarCraft and backing away from fights. It's a war game, it's about battle. And for some reason, the vast majority of the StarCraft player base seems to think, at least from my observations, that headbutting into terrible engagements is a really good way to play this game. It befuddles me, it breaks my brain. For some reason, marching into obviously terrible fights is something we just can't resist doing over and over again as StarCraft players. And this isn't even limited to noobs on the ladder, average players, or washed up commentators like myself. Even the very best of the game constantly make this mistake. Very good move there. We saw how annoying that was in the last game. Ooh, queens, queens, queens. Oh my god, another 3 queens, 4 queens going down. Okay, Cyril just needs to be really chill. He needs to back off. He can't chase into this. Oh my god, Cyril pulling the trigger in panic. I don't know what he's doing. This is a disaster of an engagement. There is no reason why he should have chased that. He got absolutely triggered. That was not a calm, measured decision. That was Cyril got so surprised. He thought he had full map vision. He had no idea where that army came from, and he just lost his cool. That moment right there was from DreamHack Masters Atlanta semi-finals, where Cyril was eliminated later on in that series. Even in that game, he almost came back and made it a really competitive match, but he was just so far behind. Even when he made all these cool plays, he just didn't have the units to get back in the game. And it's so obvious for us, we could see the whole map. Obviously, that was not a good fight, but shouldn't it be a little obvious that if your opponent appears out of nowhere with a push and surprises you, you should at least be cautious, if not just outright run away? So I started thinking about this because just the other day, there's past me casting the Florencio files. He's stacked up like 12 workers on top of each other, and he's coming in for a big surprise worker attack. Now, the defender, big tough guy, realizes what's up, pulls 5 workers out, doesn't realize, oh, it's way more workers than I thought. And instead of just running away from the fight, pulls another handful of workers. But by the time they get there, the first workers are dead. And then these workers are outnumbered and they're dead as well. And this hurt my brain because when I was casting this live, I was like, look, I've seen this situation so many times over where the default instinct, and we saw the rare Several example where one of the greatest players of all time does it, but for average Joes, this is like every game where like, oh, there's a surprise attack coming. And for whatever reason, the instinct is, oh, okay, I'll send my army out to fight. It's not, let's organize, let's pull back and form into ranks. It's like, it's like watching barbarians just get baited by like a Roman army. They like build a pit in front of them. They put spikes in front of it. And they're like, your mum's fat. And the barbarian's like, he said my mum's fat. Ah, and they just charge forward and like fall into this bloody trench and impale themselves on the spikes. And you're like, in hindsight, you know, we have education in history. Isn't it obvious that you shouldn't be fighting on your opponent's terms? What the hell, man? I feel like if players could just learn to back away from a fight and take a moment to think before engaging, they would win so many more games. Just learn to run away. Like, make that your instinct. Just run away. I can already hear people out there saying, but Pig, like, I'm playing a war game. I'm here to fight. I'm a warrior. I'm not a coward. I'm not going to be backing away from this stuff. I want to fight. I was like, I really don't know how I'm gonna respond to that argument. So I was like, let's think about it. Let's reflect and let's go and do some research from a real warrior talking about real life violent situations. Let's see what he has to say.
If someone attacks me and they want to punch or kick me, I can just run away. They're not holding on to me. I can get away from them. It's when someone grabs you that you need some technique to get out of there.
Okay, just run away. Taking notes, I agree.
I want to fight them. Well, let's think about where that might end up for you. Number one, you don't know if this person has a weapon or not. What if they have a knife? What if they have a pistol? What if they've got 3 or 4 friends? And now you're getting either shot, stabbed, mutilated, or otherwise maimed and killed.
Well, I think he's just proven my point for you. Your soldiers will be getting shot, maimed, or killed. How dare you be such a callous and evil general that you would just throw them into battle without thinking twice and checking. Do they have a gun or a knife? Do they have 3 or 4 friends? It's a very, very unethical thing for you to do as a commander, to just throw your soldiers into battle like that. Obviously, besides copy-pasting real-life violent analogies onto StarCraft, the point is there could be a StarCraft version of a knife or a gun there. I mean, there's a reason why they want to fight and your opponent's coming to attack you. They've probably got upgrades that just kicked in. They've probably been working on their army with a big focus on that in the last few minutes so that their army is at a strong point. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't just want to instantly step into the arena with them and fight without thinking about it twice. There's countless examples, if we go through the years of StarCraft, of top players making super hard to make decisions about falling back and giving up ground. And I think this game, Dark vs. Young, is a perfect example. Let's just kind of zoom through it and take a look. As the minutes go on, you can see that Ryung has this like endless push in this area of the map, and especially if you pay attention to the mini-map down there in the bottom left, let's get rid of this bottom bar. You're going to see that Dark, he'll chip away the front Marines, but he won't fully chase, because if he's going off creep into pre-spread Marines and tanks, he's going to have a terrible time. So he's just going to keep skirmishing, and he constantly tries to go for lots of backstabs, refusing to fight on Ryung's terms. He says, I think there's a reason why Ryung is set up in this position and not just diving on creep, because he's off creep, he's pre-spread, tanks are in optimal positions. Fighting into that is a bad idea, and so Dark does everything he can to avoid fighting him. Even when a lot of his backstabs actually end up getting shut down like this one, Dark keeps on trying and trying until the situation looks what a lot of people would say is way too stressful and dire. You can see as the game goes on, literally Ryung kills his natural, gets the Bailey Nest, is in the main with tanks, liberators, and Marines, and Dark is still refusing to fight 5 minutes later and just hiding his army in the very top of the map. And instead, he's expanded all along the south side and he is committing to these big attacks. He says, hey, either you have to get out there and be more mobile and abandon that winning position, or I'm just going to refuse to fight you there and fight you everywhere else. And that's what leads to this incredible comeback and just such a good way of stalling out what should have been and looked like it was going to be a game-winning move for Ryung. Shout out to the Hero Ultralisk that killed like 50 Marines with mass transfuse before it went down. That was super cool. Let's go back as well to an even older example of Grubby in the Day 9 Daily number 408 from January 2012. That's right, this is an old one, but this actually sticks in my memory because this Day 9 Daily was actually the first time where I feel like this concept truly kind of got wedged in my brain.
For instance, right here, most players would just die, but thanks to Storm, Grubby's going to be able to repel this later on. Obviously right now his Storm isn't done, but it's so easy in a time like this to just give up. As we've seen, Grubby has lost a lot of expansions and all of a sudden he's losing another attempt at a third. Don't just send your whole army down. Grubby is very responsible about just looking. Yeah, he botched that, he didn't cancel it. But Grubby's very responsible about just looking and seeing, can I kill that off? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, he literally just hangs out and stays. Grubby is now willing to...
This is really cool because Grubby's already had his third cancelled like 3 times at this point, and he just keeps cancelling it and refusing to fight until he has tech that he feels like can allow him to get the fight. So his 2-2 upgrades finished, so he's up 2 upgrades. He now has Psystorm, so even though the Vikings counter the Colossus, he feels like, hey, I can actually go and do something aggressive. It's crazy looking at this in 2023. Like, why does he not have charge? He's on mass slow zealots with 3 sentries and immortal stalkers. It's weird, but it was a completely different age of StarCraft 2, of course. The game was different, the balance was different, and the players just weren't as obviously knowledgeable. They didn't have as much experience as they do today. Not only did Grubby end up getting a sick counterattack here where he kills a lot of SCVs, does a big amount of damage to the army as it kind of A-moves into Storm, but he actually went on and fought for another like 20, 30, 40 minutes. I think this game was 45 minutes at the end, and he actually made a comeback despite being down at like half the supply, sometimes even less at points in this game. This just goes to show that if you do go out there and they have a way better army than you, you will 100% lose the game. But if you give up a base and you go, but that'll put me behind, well, rather than, you know, up until I watched that video, I was always like, well, if I'm down a base, I'm going to lose because I'm behind. But the thing is, it's like, well, if you take a bad fight and throw your army away, then you're definitely going to lose. Being a bit behind in economy is not good, but it's a recoverable situation. So there we see kind of how pulling back and being willing to make that decision is also good practice because it allows you to find a way to just increase your chances of winning when going out and taking battle is a 0% chance of victory. By running away, it gives you some time to organize and assess the situation. So a common example for a lot of players, Zerg versus Terran. Terran especially is always based around certain timing attacks usually, right? Stim, shields, +1, all finishes at the same time, and suddenly there's Stim Marines and a couple of siege tanks attacking your 4th or 3rd base. A lot of Zergs just A-move at it, and they fight, and it might work out if they're in a good position, but it also might go terribly for them. Whereas if you watch the best of the best, they'll dance back and forth, threatening the Terran, making them think they're going to attack them, and not just to buy time, and then suddenly Baneling Speed kicks in, Carapace kicks in, and the Zerg can actually take a completely different fight, where it feels like rather than the opponent just having all the tools and the great timing, that 30 seconds extra that you've bought for yourself means you've also got the upgrades to match them, and it's now a fight on fair terms. Now let's be fair to Serral, as I always show him making the very rare mistakes that he makes. When you're that good, people always like to talk about the rare times when you do something silly. Let's look at him actually being super patient and setting up a surround here, waiting for the right time to engage.
This might be his moment to really punish Cyril. Okay, he's coming in now. We have Munos hitting from all different sides. Storm's going down. Cyril trying to dodge them. A 360-degree attack here by the Zerg. Oh, he forces a recall from Stats. Almost the entire army falls, but Stats does retreat with some of them. Cyril's macro just out of control.
You could tell Cyril's units were all over the map, fighting in different areas, but he waited till the perfect time when Stats was deep on creep, came back in from all sides, and that surround was just the thing of beauty. The biggest habit for anyone out there that will save your bacon is just building this as a habit, like, oh, there's an attack here. I haven't had time to really think about whether I want to fight or not. My instinct, my habit should be to just run away, just back off, pull back, gather your forces, and assess the situation. I cover this in my Common Mistakes First Rushes video that's linked below in the description, and I talked about it over and over again in Bronze to GM, but I still see so many people make this mistake, myself included, when I forget it. So I just think it's so worth reiterating and showing you these examples, especially for lower level players where your map awareness isn't great. You're going to be getting surprised by attacks a lot. Just making a habit of getting your army together before going to fight, so you're not fighting a few units at a time, can be a complete game changer. It also gives you time to make an extra round of units, to maybe gather your units and set up a flank to deal with siege tanks or something like that. Or even to just basically say, hey, let's live to fight another day. I can't fight that army because if I go out there, I'll lose. Give up the base, pull the workers away, and just try to defend the choke point further back. Oh, I can maybe come back later with higher tech units. Live to fight another day. So I was going to finish up the video, and then I realized I hadn't showed any examples of Terran, and I couldn't think of any great examples of a Terran falling back, giving up ground, and eventually coming back because of that. And then I realized, hello, MVP versus Tefl, like, some say the biggest throw of all time. I know Bassett, esports storyteller, did a great video over this one as well, which recently took me down memory lane. It's just such a classic series where Tefl is playing at half, sometimes 1/3 the supply. Oh, sorry, MVP is playing at half the supply of Tefl for a lot of the game, but he's so patient, and positionally he keeps falling back to this main base ramp where it's really hard for the roaches to get up. And at a certain point, he's literally on one base for about 15 minutes or something. It's not something extreme like that, but he gets a few tanks on the high ground, and he just constantly uses these tanks on the high ground that you see at the bottom of the screen there to lure his opponent into really bad positions and take these incredible defensive fights where the situation is terrible, and you could argue if Tefl played a better game, he should have been able to beat him there, and you're absolutely right. Like that fight there, if he had an overseer, he could have killed the tanks on the cliff. But the thing is, if MVP went out to fight earlier and didn't play like this, he would have had a 0% chance of winning. Instead, he gave himself a chance to make the comeback, and he actually managed to do it, and it is burnt into the memory of every single StarCraft fan that watched this match, either back then or those who've caught up on it in the years since after hearing about people just rave about how crazy this match was. I'm sure I forgot a bunch of other awesome matches where people made epic comebacks by giving up ground, giving up bases, and kind of going around and not fighting on their opponent's terms. So please link up your favorite matches of pros doing it. Tell me about them in the comments section. And also share your stories of when you or a friend have actually done this yourself on the ladder and had an epic experience as a result of it. All right, guys, I just wanted to do this video because I was thinking about this, watching that big mistake happen in that flow files I was casting, and I was like, you know what? It's worth talking about. And I went down this whole trip down memory lane, looking at all these cool pro matches. So I hope this can be both kind of like a nice little history lesson, but also something you can apply in your own play on the ladder as well. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy other videos like this explaining StarCraft history, fun build strategies, and interesting techniques, check out these ones on the screen. If you want to watch any of the stuff I referenced or any of the clips I watched, they're all down below in the description, so you can check all of those out there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Goodbye and good night.